Yeah, hey, let me fix this a little bit here. All right, there we are. So, if you're watching, you know what I was trying to fix. Anyhow, my guest today, Nancy Orlen Weber. She's fantastic. Now, of course, she is an author. She's a psychic detective. She's a speaker. She's really in tune with herself and really her surroundings in the world. Now, don't get this and think that this podcast is about psychic detectives and all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit more, can I say, well rounded, where we talk about a lot of different things within the realm of psychic. What I mean by that really is that, each and every one of us, and this is what I've been told, has that ability. So how do we tap into it? How do we tune into it? So we kind of loosely talk about that, but we talk about our mindset, the individual mindset, how we feel. We get into a lot of different conversations. But I think if you really listen to the entire podcast, you're going to get something out of this. You're going to get this feel good emotion out of it. And you might come to some certain situations where you go, oh, or aha, I get it now, because I definitely did throughout this entire conversation with Nancy. So please sit back, listen, watch, and enjoy. And oh, before I forget, let me let you know what her books are. So one of them is called All Nature Speaks, and it's really about conversation with your pets and nature. Of course, it has to do with psychic and psychic abilities and things like that. And the other one is called The Life of a Psychic Detective. And you can always go to her website, www.nancyorlenweber. Now that's with one B. So nancyorlenweber.com.
Welcome to Amazing People, Amazing Things with your host, Chuck Tuck.
We're all wireless. When we get to know that, and when we prove it out, that's what I did for me. I proved it out and I went, oh, really? That's so funny. I bet they did this long before we had language.
Yep.
Because you know the person on a soul level.
Yes. Yeah.
You get them, and you get the core value, this essence right away. And you get it without thought. You don't have to be near anybody. You just have to put them in your mind for a moment. And whatever resonates, So I felt that instantly with you. In fact, I came out and told my husband that. And I said, oh my God, I was so glad he was there. Because I'm comfortable with interviews like crazy, because I've done thousands over years and years. But there are people who it's hard to resonate with.
Oh gosh, yes.
And there's that whole spectrum, that pendulum. So from not easy at all to extreme easy, you hit that far button.
You mean I'm a far right or far left or which?
No. Well, read my own mind.
Yep.
I am who I am, and man, being an investigator has really sharpened the tools a lot about what's real.
Oh, I bet. And I'm glad you brought that up, investigator, because you are a psychic investigator, but you do really more than that. And you're an author too, because you've got a couple of books out. You've got All Nature Speaks and The Life of a Psychic Detective as your books, right?
Those are my first two.
Of course, because you're going to keep on writing.
Well, the other one's coming out in October, and then I have 4 more lined up right behind it that I'm working on. I've always loved writing, but I've always also loved history and investigating.
We've kind of lost that, I think, with the younger generation as far as investigating and finding out the answer, the right answer, or the true answer, or whatever it might be. But
yeah, I think it takes courage not to be part of the group.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's hard. I'm sorry, that was hard when I was growing up. Same thing. I don't care what generation we're from, when we hit certain ages, we're social animals, right? So a child goes to, some of them go to preschool, go to whatever. They go swimming at 3 months of age, being taught how to be in water with groups. So we're a group animal in some ways. And I was a nerd, egghead, introvert, who loved every sport I could play, stickball, anything
What's
and everything.
that?
Well, one of the
I'm
best
kidding.
baseball players started out playing stickball, actually. I played Skelsey. Do you know what that is?
Scalesy? No, I do not.
Bottle caps, scrape the bottom of the bottle cap,
Okay.
make a chalk board on a street, a car, the road. Get down on your bottom, on your knees, and putting the Skelsey into the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I was the champ on my block. I was a champ in I had so much fun in sports and bike riding all over Brooklyn. I loved that. And it kept me away from home, which was also something I loved.
Okay.
Well, no. I mean,
Right.
there are times I think everybody has dysfunction in their lives at times. But when we know it, and I knew it young, I looked at why. What was behind the scenes that I didn't know? What was the motivation? So I understood that what I saw and what hurt was the acting out. Because I acted out. You can't miss that. I can't take all the credit for observation. I was busy acting out also. But I understood my motives, therefore I understood that there may be some hidden ones I didn't know, which made me very, very curious about psychiatry and psychology. By the time I was 10, I looked at the history of the insane asylum and wrote my 6th grade thesis on it.
Wow. Mine was on sharks.
Oh, wait a minute. You did sharks?
Yes. And it was like 42 pages as a sixth grader.
I believe you. When I lived in Puerto Rico, we took scuba diving lessons back then, 68. I read the U.S. Navy compilation on sharks. Wrong thing to do and go scuba diving, but it was okay. I still went. But oh my God, why? Oh, well, at 10 I could see a 10-year-old loving sharks.
Yeah, but I don't know exactly why I picked sharks, because I know at the time dinosaurs, and even still today for boys at that age, dinosaurs, but it
Sharks
was
also.
prehistoric, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm just
sharks
putting
are
that together now.
fascinating. Think about it. They never sleep. And do you know they never get cancer? You can inject tumors into them. Nothing will happen.
Oh,
You didn't know that.
I did not.
Gotcha.
You know, there's another one for Prevagen. You know, they're getting stuff from the little, what is it? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Not stingrays or something. But
Hang on. Okay, I'm okay. Oh man, this is you, and that's why I adore you. You're so present. You're absolutely so present, and it's so good. Yeah.
well, thanks. And, you know, I'm a reflection of you right now. This is how you're coming across to me. So it's just.
But that is what you came with. I saw that. That you can't fool me.
I
Investigator.
was ready and looking forward to this with you. So that
Good.
part of me was ready. So yes, this
Me
is
too.
how I am. I'm a happy guy. You know, 99.9% of the times. Now you're like a kind of a pet psychic as well. Yeah.
I found some missing ones, and I communicate with them on the other side, and I communicate with them here. It depends. You know what I discovered? It doesn't matter. You have to be the right person for the right thing,
Yeah.
right? Isn't that true of everything?
It is.
So I am sure. I think of the one time when my first, not date, but first time my husband and I were going out somewhere. It was to look at a site for workshops for the nonprofit I was running, and this big, beautiful black lab, I think it is, came running out of nowhere, and I figured it would jump right into my arms, because they all did. It went right past me to him. Man, was I annoyed and hurt.
Oh.
But it was good because you discover that what works one time, don't expect it to work the next time in anything. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
So the moment you see something, I think of it as, in medical diagnostics, shows the issue. We are not all alike, by far,
Yeah.
right? I don't care who or what, put the genetics, the thoughts, the feelings, the chemistry, the environmental things, the input from others, in utero, petrochemicals, airborne, food, fluid, and travel and exposure. Put it all together. No two are alike. I always say no two snowflakes are alike. No two people are. How do you treat everybody with the same thing? That, to me, is crazy. I stand on that. I think the people who, there are, in chemotherapy, there's a guy, I think he was brought into either Columbia Medical in New York or one of them, because he did what they call individual chemo cocktails based on your genetics, your this, your that, and no two are alike. That to me was smarter when I heard about it. It was his sister was a client and she told me about it, and I said, well, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because while one person has one thing, a cold, they may have green mucus, another may have yellow or white. Why? What's the difference? Who are they? And where did it settle in and when? So when it comes to medical, I am a stickler for go to the root of the problem. I don't care whether you use alternatives, holistic, medical, get to the root. Sometimes immediate, you have to do first aid. That's one thing. But if you don't get to the root, it's going to linger somewhere.
Yeah. You're making me think about people and pets, meaning that a lot of times I think many people, if they're feeling that illness or whatever it might be, it says, give me something now, just give me something, thinking it's going to fix. But many times those same people might look at their dog, and if the dog's sick, they'll look at the color of the poop of the dog, or see what the dog is doing. They're really trying to figure out. But they don't do that for themselves a lot of times.
No. Well, we all know that. We know that the animal comes first.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, everybody treats their animals differently than they treat themselves. Almost everybody does. Not everybody, but most. Right. I think of people saying, oh, don't have enough money, but they have horses. And I'm going, I know what a horse costs to feed.
Yeah.
So you'll starve yourself. I don't get it. But I understand, because the other species are our teachers. And that's in my book. I'm doing a revised edition with a bonus chapter on rescues, because I want people to know what's going on. So one of the things I learned from Lorenzo Borghese, who was the Bachelor, but he got there in order to do something else, which is his absolute crazy love of animals since he was born. He would take home everything, literally. So what he said, because he did so many different investigations on shelters, and said, get to a kill shelter and take the pets, because they will die. So the no-kill shelters have a better chance of adopting, but if you're adopting, please go to a kill shelter first and save somebody, save someone's life. And he literally does now. He's always done it. So I thought, I never even thought about that way.
Yeah.
You know?
my big thing that we're talking about pets and things like that, and I know everybody loves pets. My big thing is I would love to see people adopt an older pet. You know, not just a puppy. Don't go look for a puppy. And I get
Yeah.
so uptight. I'll use that word when I see
I
people.
can't imagine you being that way, but okay.
Well, when it comes to people shopping for a dog or designer dogs and things like that, or people like say, oh, they're going to breed a dog and we're going to rehome it. You know, back in the day, remember we used to go to the grocery store and somebody would be standing outside with a cardboard box full of puppies to give away. And at that time, those were really on truly by accident. You know, the dog got pregnant and you had puppies. We were careless back then about that. But now there's no reason not to be careful and have your pet spayed or neutered. And we don't need to have these designer fancy kind of dogs. Well, enough of my public service announcement on that stuff. But
I don't know that we'll ever change all of it. I do know that when we bring to consciousness of ourselves what we're doing, whatever it is, we improve. And so we can look back and see what we didn't improve and what we do.
if you are a pet owner, please be a responsible pet owner and have your pets spayed or neutered.
Right? And I know people who love dressing up their animals. I never did. I never understood it. But I can appreciate, because of one dog, a woman called me in to give her a reading, and I said, "You have a dog on the other side?" She said, "Yes, I do." And I said, "I love that baby, but I have a funny question." "What?" "He loved dressing up for holidays and for photos?" She said, "Let me show you something." She brings out this album. He's smiling in a Santa Claus outfit. He's smiling in an Easter Bunny outfit. And it's obvious he loves it because he's looking at her with affection. But he told me that from the other side, that those are fond memories. And that changed my way of thinking about each soul. I don't know what they like. I just hope that the person with them, the companion human, is sensitive to what the other species likes and feels comfortable with. Just like I would rather be in sweats in the winter than anything. Dressing up, never. I do, only when I have to, and then immediately out it goes and throw on old stuff. I love that. I like that cozy feeling for me. But I know others who would never wear that way.
Yeah.
Right? So I realized that if we're authentic, we can't judge what the other person's doing. We can only educate about something we've learned that might be useful. Right?
I like the word that you said, that might be useful, because I oftentimes I think people look for the answer, and it has to be like a definitive thing.
Oh, that hurts everybody, I think.
Oh yeah.
Right?
It's
I love when I am asked about the ultimate questions. I don't care what that, do you believe in God, or what's your belief, etc. And I go, I'll let you know when I'm on the other side. How do I know here?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have answers. And I think there are mysteries that will never get solved, and there are plenty of things. I've worked on so many missing children, both parentally and stranger, abductees. And I know the majority have never seen or will hear about what happened. It's that prevalent worldwide.
Yes. I
So
close
how
my
do you
eyes.
live? Right. And I think of the people who are the family and the best friends. It stays a heartbreak forever. So how do they live with that? And out of that, sometimes the lessons are create something useful for yourself and for others to live with it as best as possible. And so there's a company called, a nonprofit called Helping Parents Heal, started by a couple who lost their son. And they don't care how you lose your child, you've lost them. They are on the other side, you know that, no matter what circumstance. And it's a spiritual organization that has grown significantly over the few short years comparatively, maybe 8 years or 10 years, something like that, the most. And it's huge. They have conventions sold out because people need help. And we always do. We gather with people who know what it's like to have a circumstance that we've had, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Right. So
I'm sorry. I just want to say that, when you first said this, and I closed my eyes and nodded, the reason I did that is because last night I had this discussion, and this morning I got the text message too of, what do you think happened? So it was a woman that I know and her daughter. Her question: do you think it was foul play? Do you think it was suicide? Do you think it was an accident? And this was 15 years ago now, and still to this day,
oh, sure,
it affects her. And
30 years. I've been working on cases that are more than 30 years.
Yeah.
1999, one case. 1996. Present day. April 2024. I mean, I get those emails daily, and I have to weed out what I can do and what I can't, because it's not my only work. So for me, education and how people live with what they've got, and there are ongoing cases that I've worked on. One was probably 35 years or so, on and off. Right. Well, we're stubborn.
Yes, we are.
We
Yeah.
have to be. So I feel for her. I'm so sorry that they're going through it. But no, it is not easy. There are a lot of questions for people. Sometimes I get very practical because I know how to read autopsy reports and a few others. And where I don't know, I look it up, I learn, I ask friends who do know. We have a network of people, right? And so I use that network too. But when I get something like that one that you said, I look at a photo first of the deceased, and I try and relate. I like pretending they're alive right in front of me. And so even if I have an image in my head, I know it's best for me to know, oh, how close is that to what I'm seeing? Right? And so I go into a conversation as if I'm talking with them, and I ask questions about anything and everything. And sometimes you get these things like you threw a 1,000-part puzzle in the air and dropped, right? And so I have no idea where this piece belongs or that piece belongs. And I'm looking at it and going, okay. So go on and on and on, and then suddenly it gels sometimes. And you feel more firm. But that doesn't mean you have the absolute answer anyhow. Because what if, whether you're a forensic expert, prosecutor, psychic detective, doesn't really matter, wait 10 years and see new science.
Right. Yes.
I've just told somebody on two very old cases, extremely weird, old, sad cases of young girls murdered. I said, the shoe is still in the evidence room? Yeah. I said, did you ever hear of Prussian blue? No. Now this is somebody in the enforcement agency. I said, okay. Prussian blue was used in Egypt. Egypt made this color, Prussian blue. And some scientists went to see what it does. So they brought it all back and found out that it can pick up latent fingerprints that you can't pick up normally in anything we have. He said, oh, I never heard of it. I said, I know, it's fairly new. I read it in Popular Mechanics. I love science reports, and Popular Mechanics has some of the best ones. So yeah, really. And I said, get the shoe out of evidence. She may have kicked him. She may have done something in which his finger threw it away. Go. Find it. Get Prussian blue. because DNA, I watched it when it wasn't around, and then I watched how it got there, and then it made mistakes. I worked on a case of a girl murdered, a woman murdered, they think, yeah, strangled. And I said, they showed me the DNA, and I said, there's a mistake in the DNA. I don't know how to read DNA. That's what I got. And they go, how did you know that? I said, I don't know. You're just asking me. I'm telling you. This is what they said. Yeah, there is a mistake. We were hoping you would find. I went, oh my God. They're as crazy as I am. But one case that I know, because I was on the first missing child case in this country that made the bill for the Missing and Exploited Children's Act. I was part of the task force. Oddly enough. I'm old. And so she was the first unidentified teenager put into the missing person, the very first one. Wow. Princess Doe, out in like Blairstown or something in Western New Jersey. 40 years before DNA can really identify her, because they've tried DNA many times. They called me in several times. And they had to wait for the new DNA to identify her.
Wow.
40 years. So how do you know? Which is why people still have hope that maybe now something could be found. Maybe now something can happen. Maybe, who knows? And then we didn't have computers when I began.
Yeah.
But I gotta tell you a funny one that I was thinking today.
Yeah.
And last night. Weird. I've been reading about the CILLA, the cilia in our body, the little wavy little things that are the antenna for the cells, and how they communicate. And I thought, I wonder if that's how I can find the name of a killer who I never knew, never met. I could profile him down to his wavy eye, which I did in the Rachel Domas case, sitting in the car with the detective, and I said, the reason he exploded, and I'm giving him the kid's whole history. And I'm thinking later, still today, years later, how do we pick anybody who does the work? How do you pick it out of nothingness, supposedly? So when you said it, maybe it's energy, it better be.
Yeah.
It's got to be the antennas we have, focusing like I think of the old TV antenna, the rabbit ear. We were the first on our block because my father helped make them. RCA, I think. And I can remember then standing there and looking at the fuzzy, snowy screen and moving the antenna, and it's going until you finally hear a voice. And I'm thinking, well, maybe that's why focusing, mindfulness, meditation, all the rest of it has allowed us to get more connected to each other. Right?
Yeah. Which we are so lacking right now. I want to throw this in real quick because, boy, we are deep into it, and we haven't even got the start of how you really got into this, how you became a psychic detective, how nature is your force, how all of this really happened for you. I don't want to say to you, but for you, to help others.
Sure. Okay.
And then we could get right back into the thick of things, because there's some good stuff. And I want to ask you if you're able, or if you've ever experienced remote viewing and things like that.
Okay, so how do you identify, what do you think remote viewing is before we go anywhere else? Because that has a lot to do with it. Okay.
I personally, I don't think it's that your body is in that other place. Mm-hmm. The way I would believe it to be is I have to have a line of sight for me, is my thought, because I have to know where am I going to project my mind to gather that energy of whatever or whoever is that area. If I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to go to another planet, I'm going to say, I don't think you can remote view to another planet. That's my thought. I mean,
Right.
if I can see
Therefore,
something,
you can't. Therefore, you can't.
and I say
Right.
if I'm looking 5 miles down and I know that is, or even if I have a binocular, that's the facility or that building, I can see and I could project. I have to concentrate, but I believe that's what I believe remote viewing is. And then you could somehow be there and you can sense, like I said, from the energy, what is going on.
I love it.
I might be talking through my what,
No,
but
no,
that's what
no.
I think.
Let me think about what you. Okay, so first I want to answer a little bit. You know how transatlantic works, that we can make calls across the world now?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Well, in a general sense, yes.
Right? I mean, we all understand that. Our computers can speak to computers anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's all like energy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Frequencies, and that's why I say I have to be able to see for me to
In
be
your
able to
mind.
know where am I going to call, where am I going
No.
to go.
Okay, so
That's my thought.
I think, well, I don't know. I laugh because when I began even calling it something long before, I was 31 when I understood I was giving psychic readings all along, from childhood on. I had no clue. I didn't call it that. My sister showed me that I was somebody to trust what came out of my mouth. My mother showed me terror at what came out of my mouth. She was afraid of it. But anyhow, I had always been what we call psychic. And I also saw the other side early on in life, 2.5. I had a visitor. Look, a lot of children have imaginary. My imaginary one taught me what everything was I was looking at, and nobody else could see, like a baby in my belly pointing it out. And the woman said, I just found out. How does she know? So I look at all that and say, okay, whatever it was, I didn't have a wall between me and the rest of the world.
Okay.
Right? Okay, so I didn't know, but it made me very curious about what the hell is going on here. I don't get it. Because of the way others responded to it, I knew to be somewhat careful of what I said, except on and off, I would blurt out things and say, no, Alan's not sick. He doesn't have a cold, no. He's going to die next summer. Shut up. Right? And I thought about it. I wasn't upset with her. I was, how do I know this? I was 13, 12? 12. He died when he was 13. He was one of my best friends. And so all along, what I could see along that path, and it's what's in my third book, Soul Detective, why you go inside. You go inside because you don't understand something and you're curious. You don't shut down, you keep it open. You don't get frightened of it, you walk into it in curiosity. It's so that you may look to the outer world as a weirdo. I did. But I found that by doing that, I saw things differently with the cliques in high school, with the typical thing. I didn't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Right? So I went on my merry way, and nursing taught me I was very psychic. Doctors loved it. They asked me for diagnoses. They had no problem with it at all. My injuries kept me isolated a lot. I had 33 hospitalizations by the time I was 25, something like that. But it also helped me know how I can contend with pretty much anything and get through it because I'm still alive. Even though I didn't like it, I could still move it forward. So I did. When I wanted to leave nursing, I had been offered the all the education free I wanted up through PhD. I went, I don't want to go to school again. No. And then I was offered the top post in psychiatry research, and I went, I'm not your puppet. No. And so I had no idea what I'd do. So in 6 months, though, I went home, decided to have a second kid. When they said I couldn't have children anymore, I said, you don't know anything anyhow. You told me I'd be dead in 8 hours. Didn't make it that way.
Yeah.
So I always thought there's something going on that it doesn't fit in a box of thought, whatever that
Agreed.
is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so we have to make our way. And sometimes we have to make it up, right? And keep moving. So I did, and people came to me, psychiatrists came to me, they hired me for all their clients, and I realized this was useful, more useful than when I was a nurse. Because I can know crisis, I worked with crisis before, but now I have the opportunity to work with everyday people who just need a leg up to know and confirm that they truly are beautiful souls, and not to judge them, but to get to the core. 1980, because of all the work I was doing with animals and people started reporting it. I never had publicity, I was frightened of all of it. I didn't want people to know what I did. Just word of mouth is fine. Word of mouth, the police came knocking and never stopped. So the detective in my town, I had no idea the first female officer was a woman, black belt in karate, and my son was taking her class. He was 4 when I moved to Jersey. And she asked me at the end of class, she said, we had a rape in town. And I looked at her and I said, he looks like a farm boy. Kind of orange hair, freckles, narrow face. It's not a boy, it's a man. She said, would you mind if you spoke to my superior officer next week? I said, no, okay. And I thought, whatever. Didn't think anything of it. Next week, I always say Ernie from Sesame Street was there. The chief of detectives is standing against the wall, and he wiggles his finger and goes, psst, come here. Just like Ernie. And I thought, oh my God, I'm with Sesame Street. It's enough with my kids. And he asked me to repeat it, so I did. And he said, I'd like you to speak to my cohort, his partner, and me. Can we come over tomorrow? I said, yeah. Now, I lived only less than a quarter mile from the police station at the time, Bud Lake, New Jersey, western New Jersey. So I had just moved there a few months before from Peekskill, New York. And so I'm sitting there opposite them, and they said, we have a problem with what you just said. I said, okay, what is it? Now, I'm not thinking about being psychic or anything. I really don't care. I'm just curious, and it's interesting to have 2 detectives in my office. Period. That's all I care. Then they said, well, there are 2 people answering that description. I stood up and I went, no, there is not. My tone, it was lovely. And I walked across the room with a very decided limp in the left side and went and sat back down and crossed my arms and said, that's him. They looked at me with eyes boggling and they go, how did you know? One has a limp. I said, it's easy. I became him. And I'm thinking to myself, Nancy, you are truly insane. You do know that. God, I was right. They went back, and it was one of the several confessions I had gotten for people long before, too.
Wow.
I just kept getting confessions. So that started the ball rolling, and I worked on there were 3 mass manhunts. Charles Lindbergh, a serial killer, James Kadadich, and the killing of State Trooper Philip LaMonaco by the, I don't think they were Black Panthers, because I had friends who were. And this is not them. This is Joanne Cheshmire's cohorts. He was on a hit list for them. And so they needed to find the killers. So everything, I worked 2 of the cases. I wasn't born when Lindbergh baby was kidnapped, so I didn't work on it. But I worked on the 2 biggest ones, and I was accurate and was proven, and weird. So when I look at remote viewing, I think all of it is remote viewing. I don't get what
Okay.
people are thinking, because Alice Miller, Dr. Alice Miller wrote in The Drama of the Gifted Child, people with a lot of trauma as children have very strong psychic antennas.
Yes.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay. So I think along with that, like no two snowflakes are alike, I'm sure there are plenty of people who had far more trauma than I did. But my antennas started out very strong without it. And then with each one, it grew more. And I have a bit, just a little bit, of a rebel in me.
You think?
Just a little bit, because I don't like going along with everything. It's why I went organic long before. My mother would go, stupid. I said, yeah, well, talk to me when I'm 40 and I'm fine, and you're at 40 falling apart. Okay, I got you. I had no problem. My charming mouth. So for me, remote viewing, I've done that my whole life. When somebody asked me to see something, and Lynn Casey, Edgar Casey's son, and Fritz Reinhardt, who founded the Dowsing Society, one of the earliest, he worked for Interpol, Dowser, post-World War II, finding bodies and landmines. And he was a dear friend, because he came to me and said, Lynn and I are looking for the second Edgar Casey. Now, he had already been to me once, and we had a long talk, and I loved him. He was such a good heart, right? And so he said, I have a couple in Germany. I close my eyes. I see them. I think, who the heck knows? Right? But energy travels, and just like I said to you, international, wireless, everything, we are. So I don't doubt that, because I spent a lot of time proving it out to myself. I wrote a lot in my journals, tested it out, went looking for proof. So I told him what I saw there, and it was accurate. And then he talked about you, Lynn, and they were looking for these. I said, my name is not Edgar, honey. It's Nancy, and I just do what I do, and I'm not looking for people who call me the second Edgar Casey. No. Besides, I don't go unconscious unless you knock me out. And even then, I have a hard time getting unconscious. So, unless you really punch me. But, no, I've been punched, and I don't lose consciousness very often. In anesthesia, they have to remind me to go to sleep.
Oh gosh.
Well, but that's also trauma. Afraid to let go, right? So that may be part of the recipe that works for me. I don't know, but it seems to work. On the work. I'm not talking personal relationships.
Right. Right. We're going to
never
make
know.
that clear. This is all work related.
Well, I wouldn't bring my husband in to have any comments about this right now.
Well, okay. My turn to sound a little off the wall then.
I love that.
Because, and this happened early this morning, late last night, whatever you want to call it. Didn't get to bed till 3 a.m., which is my normal.
Really?
3 a.m. ish, and get up by 7:30 at the latest. But I don't know. Okay, this will sound strange to, maybe sounds normal to you, but strange to other people out there. I don't know if I was me or if I was somebody else, but I was in a different place, and I was physically there. And even though what I just said just a second ago about remote viewing, I view this as differently, but now I'm going to maybe put it into a whole thing. But again, I don't know if it was me or if I was somebody else, but I was definitely in another place physically. And how do I say that? Because I felt the person, and I felt the person. I mean, the touch, the senses, and everything. And then all of us, and that may have gone for maybe really a couple of minutes is what I could say it was. But in reality, I don't know if it was a second or 2 seconds, or if I was there for even longer. But all I know is all of a sudden I realized, where am I in my head while I was in that lucid dream or whatever? Where am I? Mm-hmm. And then I came out, and all I remember is, holy smokes, I felt the person. I was there, but I can't get back there. And that was just really, I
So,
have, if you could
goosebumps.
see the goosebumps
Goosebumps,
and the
standing
hair on standing straight up on all my arms right now, you would say, you have a disease or something. You've got a lot of bumps on you, and the hair is sticking up.
It's called truth to me.
But
The wings are wide open.
yeah,
So I'm going to ask you a few questions just fast, and you just say the first thing. Male or female?
female,
This century or some other time?
unknown. If I have to recall, it was a future.
Okay. Like it? Was it a good feeling?
It was a warm feeling. Warm, soft feeling.
Right. That's love.
That's my senses I could say.
Yeah. Interesting.
It-
So I would write it all down. I would date it. I would write it. Because you may find out something in this future, in this lifetime, about who that is that resonates so strongly with you.
I would do that. Yeah, and
You know,
I wish I could.
you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So in investigations, when people say, well, how do you find the killer? Don't you? And I go, well, there's a recipe for that, similar to what you're saying, in a sense. I cannot judge the soul. I can judge the action. And in order to connect, I have to connect to their soul with adorable love, warm, cozy love, knowing the pain that they have suffered that brought them to this horrible world of their own making.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And see if they will come to the light with me. And if not, I'm not meant to do it with them. But that journey is not so different from what you're saying, because I get a feel as if, and I've been asked by people looking at me as an FBI profiler, they said, better, they called them profilers. Profilers have contacted me to write another book, etc. And I'm going, no, it's just something you have to allow yourself and not be afraid. So your lack of fear in your experience, right? I liken it to what happens with me when I can feel the killer and I can feel the victim. I'm not afraid of their pain and what they suffered. I can go right there with them. And so you're able to do this in your search for connection. Because obviously you connected to somebody very wonderfully and very peacefully and very fascinatingly for you. And if you take that as your truth and write it, date it, you just see what you see in the future.
And I could say it wasn't like a future, like a millennia away. It was a
It's this life.
relatively near type of future, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. So the thing I don't assume is don't interpret the outcome now. There's nothing to interpret.
Mm-hmm.
People make assumptions about those things. Like, I've never made an assumption that I knew who the killer was for sure. Not until you have proof on the real side, where they absolutely confess and they have evidence. That's why I always put a little question mark about all of it. So, no outcome. It's just fascination with the event will bring a stronger connection to whatever that's meant to be. Got it?
Got it. Yes.
Good.
Yeah. I
That's
do, because
fun. That's
from what
fun.
I'm understanding and grabbing from you is my interpretation is a lot of people, again, we said this earlier, seek to have the answer now. We want it now. So I'm going to almost force an outcome. I'm going to force whatever it is. But then again, that may not be the true thing because you forced it.
You just said it very well, better than I've heard, because no matter what, when I use the words and say pressure shuts things down, a lot of people feel it's too hard not to be pressured because they need it, just like the woman called you about her beloved on the other side, right?
Mm-hmm.
The hardest thing that people who have lost people, they have to put aside all the emotions. It just shuts the ability right down because it grounds you too much. You're right into the chemistry of your form. You're not into the energetic field as much. So there's a little shift we have to make to get into the energy. So I remember sitting with a group of, I guess it was the chief of police, captain, whatever, a group of them in a meeting for something, some work. Doesn't matter. And I started off, I said, you don't know me, so let me explain something. I am not it here. I am part of the team. So treat me that way, please. And I don't know what you know, and you have the murder book on it. I don't. So I'm going to give you whatever I get, and I have no idea whether it makes any sense or not, or whether it's right or not. You can just say confirm, deny, or not even say a word. It doesn't matter. I'm just here to do the job as best as I can, and let's see what we get. Is that okay? Because that's okay with me. Yeah. People ask me, how many did I said, I don't know. I don't expect them to give me any answers. I found one tells the story of Chief Detective Ross English was the one who first met me and worked with me, and he retired 10 years later, I think it was, and moved to North Carolina. So he calls up and invites me and my husband down for a visit, and we go. Okay, and he said, tomorrow I'm taking you with me to see a murder scene, and then we're going death row. That was my vacation. So I go to the murder scene. I tell him what I see with his partner. Good, okay. And I never hear anything about it again. We talk, but he never says another word. Years go by, and a reporter contacts him, apparently, from local to my state, New Jersey, and goes and then reports it all. It turns out I was right, and I helped him find the killer. But he never told me, and he was close. And so I know when I say you have to take the pressure off and just learn how to live with it, even with people on the other side that you are missing, or you don't know if they're on the other side or here, but missing, then you have to put all the fear aside, and I know how hard that is. And just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to add on that conversation that I had with this person, and it's kind of, maybe I put it wrong, but what I said is, you know, you need to decide what is going to, how did I put this without sounding bad? Basically I just said, you need to decide one of those three outcomes. What happened? You know, was it a self-inflicted type of thing, you know, suicide? Was it an accident, or was it foul play? You have to decide, and then you need to stick with it, and you need to live with it. Otherwise it will eat you up with curiosity forever and ever and ever.
I love that. I think that's far healthier way for somebody to settle in, and if things change, it'll change later. It's not going to change that moment if new things are found. If they can sit in that even a few minutes a day, to sit with that without questioning, they can calm it down, and they can maybe open up the door of more knowledge. You never know. That's a beautiful way to do it. I love that. The other
thing I believe about that, what I said to the person. Oh, go ahead.
No, you just hit on something. I never even put it that way, and you're so right. That's how you get people to stop the pressure if they can. Because that's what we actually do when we stop our own pressure. You're so good. I knew I'd love talking with you.
The biggest reason I said this to the woman is because you don't allow yourself to be comforted by that person who is deceased and have a conversation. They don't, even if they're not there, because if you're always wondering what happened, you're not thinking about the person, and you're not spending time with the person and your memory about the person. You're spending too much time thinking what happened. It's kind of like I don't say kind of like, it's just that you don't spend the time that is deserving of that person who has passed. And that's what you want to, and that's what you should be doing, is having those memories and those wonderful times, because they are dead and gone when you forget about them. And in a way,
Wow.
you are forgetting, and you've forgotten who they are if you're worried about what happened, because it's not the person. You want to know, what took place, but that's not the person. That's just me.
No, that is your wisdom speaking beautifully. Wow. Wow. You're a good teacher.
But
No,
thanks.
you really are. You are a very beautiful teacher. No wonder I felt that way with you. I can see that. Listen to that. I want everybody to hear you. That is really so impressive, because it's so useful that way and so true. That is beautiful.
Well, I hope the folks who are
Wow.
watching and listening to us having our conversation today really get something out of
Wow.
this. If they're in that place where they're hurting, or if they're in that place of curiosity, whatever it might be, I hope they were able to find something useful out of this today.
Me too.
But,
Ditto.
but before we go, we haven't even talked about how they're going to reach out to you and find your book. I'm looking over here. This is wonderful. It's Nancy, you've got such a wonderful website and YouTube channel, and you've got a lot of information up there too. I'm going to let you do the justice of saying how they're going to reach out to you, if you wouldn't
Okay.
mind.
Oh, thank you. So even though my name is Nancy Weber, to most people, I chose to use my maiden name to find all my old friends and relatives for years, and I have. So I use Nancy Orlen, Orlen for night, Weber, 1B. And it's very simple, and I'm all over YouTube, and I've got a website, I've got online courses, yada, yada, yada. I love leaving a legacy. I've thought about that when I was young, and I thought, when I get to be 85, when I look back, what will I feel? Oh, I want to help as many people as I can. I want to be Florence Nightingale. No, maybe Clara Barton. No, I want to be Nancy Drew. So, anything's possible.
Yeah.
Anything's possible. And so, thank you. I find you confirmed what I felt when we first met. I came out, I'll tell again and again. Now I know why I was so taken with who you are before, just by seeing you. You carry a wisdom that is exceptional, and it's grounded, it's practical, and it's useful. And I hope, are you an author yet?
I am not.
I'm here to help.
Okay.
Oh.
I have enjoyed this. So, and then again, I'm going to hope that people really enjoy it. But, if you want to find out more about Nancy, like she said, Nancy Orlen Weber. That's
all you have
with
to do.
1B.com. So, or you can do the @YouTube thing, and
Good.
you can find her everywhere.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Chuck, this is amazing.